Good morning, everyone. Dan Bates, President and CEO, Greater Hamilton Chamber of Commerce, and thank you for joining us for Coffee and Conversation. I'm sitting here in front of Moser Hall at Miami campus in Hamilton. So we're going to hear from Brian today from the Historical Society, and really interesting presentation he has prepared for us. So we are on Zoom. If you have questions of the speaker, I'm sure he won't mind if you interrupt him and ask those questions. If you're on Facebook Live, you can type those questions in, and either Laura or Tiffany will get them answered for you. So that's the protocol. We're going to get started here in just a minute. Who's doing self-introductions?
I can.
Okay, thank you, Tiffany.
All right. I'm Tiffany Grab, Director of Marketing at the Greater Hamilton Chamber. When I call on you, just tell us your name and what business you're with. And we'll start with Rusty.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rusty Allison. I'm with Advanced Online Insights. We are Google photographers.
Awesome. And Jill?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jill Cates with Easter Seals Redwood in Workforce Development.
All right. Jason Michael Miller.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jason Michael Miller, Director of Membership and Engagement for the Greater Hamilton Chamber, and I have a guest today. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Faith. I'm the new intern.
Our new intern.
Faith is doing awesome. We're so glad that she's with us.
Thank you.
Nancy.
Good morning. I'm Nancy O'Neill with the Chamber.
All right. Laura.
Good morning, everyone. Laura Merrill, the Greater Hamilton Chamber.
All right. And I think that's it. So, Brian, you can start your presentation.
Right, super. First of all, I want to thank you guys for having me and allowing me to do this, and I want to thank those that have joined. Hopefully, I have some information that you will find valuable and that deals with the program that we've just started and just kind of rolled out. We're still in the process of of hitting the ground running with this. So let me tell you a little bit real quick about the Historical Society. So because it's never ceases to amaze me that an organization that's been around since 1934, how many people come in and go, "Oh, we had no idea you existed. I've lived here my whole life, 68 years," and and things like that. So the Historical Society was formed in 1934. At that time, it was just a collection of people who had like interests. They just met at each other's home and did that kind of thing. So it became an official LLC and in 1949. So last year we celebrated the 95th year of the organization and the 75th year of our location here at 327 North 2nd Street. We have the Benninghoffen Museum, which was the home of John and Wilhelmina Benninghoffen, who were the third owners of the property. But so that's kind of where we are. The museum opened in 1951. Which was the home, and that's what we've been doing. We've been plugging along ever since. I've been involved with the organization for about 12 years. Started out as a board member, past president for 3, retired school teacher. So as Dan mentioned, as we go through, if you have something that you want to ask, please don't hesitate. You don't have to wait till the end. You can interrupt me. I was a high school teacher, so I'm used to being interrupted. It doesn't faze me at all, or anything like that. So, basically was, like I said, on the board, and then got retired from teaching, got the office job here for a while as office manager, and then 2 years ago slid over into the executive director phase of things, which is kind of where we are right now. So this program, From Ledger to Legacy, is something that we had been thinking about, and actually it was Jason that kind of spurred on the whole to get us really thinking about it in a more meaningful way, and something that we just decided, we really should do this. One of the issues that we have as the Historical Society is we receive about 25 to 35 information requests a month for various things, genealogy, and things like that. So about a third of our requests deal with family histories, but a little over a quarter deal with some form of aspect of business. People come in, hey, my grandfather used to work at this company. Do you have anything about it? Or, my great grandparents ran this corner store in this neighborhood. Do you have anything? Do you have any photos? Do you have this? Do you have that? And a lot of times we do, especially if it's a larger organization or a larger corporation or a company or something like that. But on a lot of times we don't, because we don't have the wherewithal, the resources to go out and actually create things for our archives. We basically have to mainly rely on things that people give us. And it's a little disappointing for them and for us to basically say, yeah, we can't really help you. So this is something that we've kind of come up with that we hope over the long term kind of solve some of those problems. But we also, looked at it as a fact that this is something that can actually help your business or your organization. So we came up with this this initiative that basically is about, organizational memory, impact, and identity is kind of what we're kind of focusing on. And the ultimate goal is to have this beneficial relationship between, your organization or your business and the historical society, because we love to have that information, right? We love to have the background. We love to have the information that we can give to people if they come in and ask. Or a lot of times we put together programs or exhibits on various topics across the spectrum of things, whether it be business or nonprofits, or right now our current exhibit is the 100 years of Camp Campbell Guard. So we collaborated with the Great Miami Valley YMCA to put that together. And things of that sort. So we do a lot of partnering. We're getting better at that. We were trying to do that more and more. But the goal was to basically have an end product that we could use and store and provide information to the public, but as well as that your organization or your business can actually use this process to strengthen what you do, and to strengthen your the way you present to the community and the way that actually the community perceives you. So it's designed for anybody, right? So we have put a packet together of information that includes worksheets, it has checklists, it has advice, it has the things that you should do, it has schedules, it has timelines about how to institute this process. And it's not a very detailed process at all. It can be as detailed or as not detailed as you want to make it. And it depends, because ultimately the way we see it is, if we can basically have something, if sometime you basically put this together and bring it to us, something is better than nothing, right? And right now for a lot of the area, we serve the whole county, but we have a lot of there's so much more that we don't have than we do. So that's what we're kind of looking at. So corporations, large businesses, things of that sort, small businesses, privately owned businesses, family-owned businesses, nonprofits, civic organizations, social service organizations. This program has things set up for all of that. We have stuff that is pretty much universal across all genres of business, but then there are also aspects that are independent. So we have sections that deal with just, nonprofits. We have sections that deal with just social service or just, small businesses, because those things are all different. What those organizations are and what they generate is different. All right, their focus is different, and things of that sort. So we put this packet together. And again, if you click on if you see in the chat, I put a link to some of those introductory documents that you can check those out. So that's kind of like the introduction and kind of the guidelines of what the program is. So that's kind of it, and again, it's kind of like why now? And it's, I think if I sit down and think about it, about how much stuff disappears on a daily basis, it's actually very disheartening. So I try not to do that. But, you have the situation, and it doesn't matter if you've been around for 1 year or you've been around for 100 years, you create history every day. And this is not something to burden these, to you guys at all. This is something that I think can ultimately help you, because there are aspects of this program that will make you better, and more accessible, as an organization or as a business. So, again, everybody creates history every day. Now, is all of that history valuable? In various terms, yes. But is this, as far as the program goes, do we have to, are we asking you to keep every single thing that you generate? Absolutely not. All right. There are certain things that are more valuable than others, especially if you look at it from, what you might be doing. It's more than just old documents. All right. There was recently a story I just saw in the Journal News about the guy, the whole system that sets up that's keeping the history of National Cash Register, NCR, up in Dayton. And if you look at that picture in that paper, he's in a giant warehouse that is absolutely full of boxes. All right. That warehouse is probably larger than our entire facility. So we don't have, the wherewithal. We have to be very specific and things like that. But you're going to use most of what you collect for your purposes, not the end result for us. That's just a bonus for us. But, your organization, as far as, just keeping track of who you are and what you do and how long you've done that, right? You can preserve your identity. You can basically detail your purpose, and create this organizational memory. Longevity is an important factor. It's an important factor for people who might want to actually someday, be a client of yours, someday may want to work for you, or someday, people coming in and it's the businesses that have been around a while, or the businesses that actually took the time to make themselves known to the public, and whether that's through advertising or marketing or anything like that. But, just look at social media right now, just, Facebook, and how many local history sites there are. We are by far not the only one at all. I mean, there are just individuals who do this because people are really interested in that. And if you look at that, does anybody remember this restaurant or this store or this business? It was down on this corner. That's kind of what you want the people to be doing, and again, it's down the road a ways. You have to be able to think outside the box and go, okay, do I want people to know about what I did or what our organization did or what our business did, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, 100 years from now? Well, this is the beginning of that process. If we could all tell the future, we would know, that we're going to be successful and things like that. But the fact is that businesses close every day. And once those doors close, everything that they've accomplished and everything that they might have done and everything that they generated in a large part disappears, and it's gone forever. We can look through the old city directories here and look at, how many businesses there were in 1920 or 1950 or 1980, and how many of those are still around. It's a small percentage. But, it basically, allows your business to create this continuity amongst your employees or amongst your clients, and they can learn about you. And any of this information that you're going to collect for this project, use it, right? Put it out there. Use it in your marketing. Use it in your advertising. Use it in your social media. Especially if you evolved from some other, organization or from some other, company or anything like that. Tie that legacy or that history back as best you can. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be physical like that, right? It can be geographical, all right? Highlight your area, your neighborhood, the street that you were on, anything like that, especially if you're in a facility that maybe had another business or another organization in it before you. Tie into that history, because any connection that you can make with people who want to work for you or want to work with you, and anybody who wants to come in and be your customer or volunteer for you if you're a nonprofit or anything like that, the more you can put out there for people that gives you their story, the better, right? People don't apply, to you or just choose to take, to work for you because of what you do. All right. There are tons of organizations and businesses that do the exact same thing that you might. So what is it that separates you from all the others, right? You do the same thing. It's probably most likely how you do it, right? How you present it. And if you have this pride in your business or your organization and you put that out there and want everyone else to know about it, that makes an impression on people. So it builds a strong business culture. It builds a strong, internal pride among the people that are involved with your organization. They want to contribute because you're excited about it. You want people to know about it. There's tons of organizations out there and businesses out there that kind of do their daily business and they do well. They survive, but they are kind of working in a vacuum because it doesn't, what you do or what you really think is important sometimes doesn't leave the walls of your facility. So if we can help you create information and items and things like that, can get you out there and create excitement about what you do, and things like that. That's kind of, the main purpose of this is to just basically, because we want, everyone to thrive, but, we want to be able to tell stories. That's what we do here. We tell stories. And the more detailed and complete those stories can be, the better we look. Right. And that's our goal is to be able to be able to present as much as we can. And like I said, we have to rely on other people to do that. So, and again, that builds community, pride. It builds community interest and things like that. And there's some amazing things going on, across the county right now, and specifically, in the city of Hamilton, right? We have people come in that go to Spooky Nook, or they come in for reunions, and they're just like, I left here in 1989, and we came back for this class reunion, and I didn't even recognize, the city. It's completely different. So there's amazing things going on, and every little piece of that puzzle, every little business, every little organization is contributing to that in some way, and should be celebrated for that. So that's kind of what we're doing. So the focus of the program is basically internal help. The after product, as far as that benefits us, that's kind of like, that wasn't the main focus of why we did that. So any questions so far on anything that we've discussed?
Brian, I have a question. So,
Yeah.
just to confirm, the program that you're talking about the worksheets and checklists and timelines, that is called From Ledger to Legacy. That is the actual program. Yeah.
That is correct. Yep.
And then I have a second question.
Sure.
Maybe you can talk about this later, but I would love to learn more about all the partnerships and collaborations that you do in addition to the YMCA.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we can hit that at the end, not a problem. So I did this presentation at Rotary not too long ago, and basically one of the things that we kind of decided to head off is that, again, the purpose of this program isn't to create a lot of extra work for you. All right. That is not the purpose at all. And like I said earlier, it can be as detailed and as intricate as you want, or, as laid back and as broad as you want. Whatever you feel best helps you in your situation, right? And that's going to be different for everyone. So, and there are some people who are very detail oriented and are going to want to try to capture as much as they can. And there are other people who are going to be like, you know what? I'm trying to run a business. I'm trying to run an organization. I don't have a lot of extra time to be dealing with creating a company or a business history. All right. And again, the program can actually help you do that. We can give you some hints and some tips and things like that. It doesn't have to be the person that is actually running the organization, right? One of the great things about being a good leader is that you can delegate. So, but you just have to keep in mind that there probably is somebody in your organization that knows more than anybody else, right? And because they've been there the longest, or they've been involved with the most different aspects of your organization or your business, or whatever the reason why, They are the ones, there's the go-to, right? They know a lot. Well, things happen, right? People retire, and things like that. And if you basically, that all that knowledge that's been amassed disappears. And it is so much easier to create this as you go than to try to come back and recapture it after the fact. We had a company come in last year, huge industrial, back in the day, back at the turn of the century, one of the major industries in Hamilton. They are now actually a subsidiary of another company. They're based over in Warren County. I had no idea that that company was even, still around, different name, but their roots were, from this turn of the century company in Hamilton. And they wanted the history of that organization. Because they weren't aware of it. The new management or the new ownership and all that, and the new corporate entities wanted to know. So it was, we had some stuff, but again, and they wanted to put out this publication of their history. They were celebrating an anniversary or something like that. And they were having a lot of difficulty because that information wasn't saved at the time. So they're going to try to go back and recreate it. And we could help them. We help them a little bit, but obviously, if there was a program like this, and a larger corporations do have, programs like this. P&G, they have a whole museum of the history of P&G, and it's actually, if you've never been there, it's really cool. I would suggest it. And like I said, NCR had the paper, the story in the paper. It's those small local businesses, those family-owned businesses that we're trying to capture, because those businesses are actually sometimes, right, they're actually woven into the fabric of their community or whatever it might be. And it's also difficult sometimes for people to think down the road, right? This is not incredibly important. I have plenty of time, and things like that, but things happen, and things like that. So, like I said, businesses close, people retire, management changes, buyouts happen, priorities change. So you can basically, through this program, you can also create a story of this is what's important to us. Right. This is our philosophy. This is what's important to us, which is, again, is an excellent way to onboard people, to keep your employees interested, to give them a sense of pride. And once you develop this stuff, don't just put it in a box somewhere in a closet and, keep it there and say, you know what, we'll deal with this, when all is said and done. Use it to basically, keep the public knowledge about what you do and why you do it. That's almost just as important, right? Especially when you're with employees, right? This is why we do things the way we do. And, don't also just celebrate the good things, or the anniversaries or that, look back and actually examine, well, it didn't work so well with your organization, or maybe there was a bad decision, because then you learn from that. And if you can then put that throughout the entire organization and get everybody on the same page in philosophy, those things will probably not happen as much. So it's an interesting situation, that you can actually use a lot of this. So that's kind of what we are hoping for. So,
Brian, I have a question.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, obviously people are busy running businesses and
Yep.
organizations. So, do you have a recommended where to begin type of thing with, I assume you have templates and stuff that could be filled out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that people aren't, because I'm sitting here thinking, so where would I start?
Right. So yeah, so and you're absolutely correct. So if if you're interested, if there's something that you think you might want to, do, then yeah, you can contact us, contact me, right? We do have a packet that we put together. We have we have the program, and yeah, we kind of go through and basically some of the easy things. So the first thing you need to do is basically just assign, okay, who is going to be responsible for this? All right. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the owner or the president or anything like that. Who's the person in your organization that touches most aspects of your business? That's kind of a logical person that you might want to go to. But I also wouldn't, just select one person and dump all of this on them. Create a little team, two people at least. And because then it gives you the ability to have some discussion and say, all right, what do we want the focus to be? What kind of things should we be looking at? What kind of things should we be keeping? What kind of things can we disregard? And things like that. So the next thing you want to do is, again, define your scope and your goal. What's your goal of this? Is your goal for this just to, to put down, this is who we are and this is what we did and this is how long we did it and this was our growth and all that kind of stuff? Or do you want to be more detailed? Again, there's lots of different ways that you can approach it, and we can give you those suggestions. But it's ultimately up to the organization themselves to decide what they want that to be. I know, again, the stuff that you create can be used in advertising. It can be used in your marketing. It can be used in your social media. This is like, this is who we are, right? You may not even realize it, that we're right down the street from you and this is what we do. That kind of stuff. And then, so the next step would be to kind of create an inventory of what existing materials you have. And that's the easy part. So once you decide what you want to keep and what you want to focus on, then it's like, well, okay, what do we already have that can fill that? And we have audit documents that are part of the package, and then we basically have a rating system of, 3 being, we have everything that we need. We have every single aspect of this that we're looking for. 2 means we have a lot, but there's some holes. 1 being, we've kind of addressed that, but it's really, really, really rough. And of course, a 0 is, that's something that we haven't even addressed, at this time, or we haven't collected. And it may be something that you can go back and get. You pull it from various sources and just organize it and things like that. So, look at what you have. We create lists for the different types of businesses. This is what you should be. This is what small businesses or family-owned businesses should be looking at as far as things to keep. This is what nonprofits should be looking at as far as things to keep. Service organizations or whatever it might be. So we have those as well. And again, some of those are universal across all the types of businesses, but there's also a lot that is fairly unique for those things. And that is in there too, and we can help you. And again, we're not just going to give you a packet if you request it and with all the materials and go, okay, thanks, see ya. We will help you, right? We're always here. Give us a call, shoot me an email. I can come out and actually, go through some stuff with staff and things like that once you've kind of decided that, okay, we want to do this, and things like that. And basically, it also is a nice way to, get you organized and get you thinking, because again, it's the program is probably a little front heavy, but once you've got the basics down, and then just kind of maintaining it becomes fairly simple. And it's usually just a time period, right? Every 6 months, or once a year, we'll go back and reevaluate, and we'll add and we'll change and things of that sort. So it's much easier to maintain and update regularly. There is a little bit of work because, again, you're trying to determine what you have, how much you have, what you don't have. So that's a little bit up on the front end, which is, again, why it's better to have somebody knowledgeable, and things like that. So, not in any way to downplay interns, because they're very important. And so forth. But that's probably not the best person to basically come in and go, okay, we want to collect and organize our organization's history. You want somebody who has some knowledge and that kind of stuff. And it'd just be easier in the long run. And then, of course, once you have that, then you can figure out, like, okay, how can we use this? How can we use this to our advantage externally in the public, but how can we also use it to our advantage internally, as well? Start small, right? You start small. Just, pick a couple things. Maybe the first thing is just a list of, former board members, or a list of former executives, or, that kind of thing, or a timeline, right? That's the most basic thing you should have, is a timeline. We started on this date. And then you have the important milestones. And then, if the business is no longer, once you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to retire and this is the end of the business, or, here's the buyout, or here's when we were taken over by this, or here's when this happened. So that's the easiest thing. And believe it or not, as far as we're concerned, that's even something as simple as that helps us out a lot. As far as that goes, that we can actually then start telling your story, and things like that. So consistency matters more than perfection. As long as you just regularly spend some time on whatever that periodic basis is, it's not going to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be perfect. There's always going to be gaps. There's always going to be things, you're not going to have access to, or that you've like, oh, we should have kept one of those, right? Or this or that, and things like that. The other thing I want to focus on, as far as that goes, and it's not always documentation. That's important, but if you're trying to impress the public or you want to make an impression on the public, it's items, it's the artifacts. So, it's if you go back and look, if you go back and look, so you have businesses that were shooting out ashtrays that had, their information on them or logos, or, again, obviously not so many people smoke anymore, but I mean, matchbooks and things. So all these promotional items, and nowadays it's more like water bottles and stress balls and things like that. But keeping those things, those promotional items that maybe that you generate, or your ad campaigns or any advertisements that you put out, people love ads. Right. And again, it doesn't matter how old they are, this or that, save them. Okay. Because again, eventually in the future, you'll be able to use those, or we'll be able to use those, and the public will be able to come in and say, oh, okay, that's very, very, interesting. That's pretty cool. People absolutely just go crazy for that kind of stuff. So, kind of keep that stuff in mind. We don't need every single, you don't need to create and keep every single memo that you put out or every single email. Find representative things of those kind of things. Obviously starting documents or anything like that are very important. Things like that. But documents that have a bunch of legalese and stuff like that aren't going to be a lot of value, to the public, because they are kind of, might be difficult to follow or things like that. But as far as the history of the company, yeah, they are very important. So if you have your corporation documents or whatever that is, yeah, keep that. That's absolutely something that you should be keeping. But what you do with that afterwards is up to you. And some things that you keep, you will use a lot. And some things that you maybe decide to keep, you may use very little, and things like that. So it's very much a program that can be tailored to whatever you want it to be, whatever your business or your organization or anything that you want it to be. It's very flexible. It's very interchangeable. We kind of designed it that way. I'm sure it's not perfect because again, once actually, hopefully people start using it, then we'll get some feedback and go, hey, it would be really great if you had this, and this kind of, and that type of thing. When we put this together, we talked to a bunch of people and got some advice and got some ideas. But things get better as they're used and things like that. So as advice comes back. So hopefully, we'll be able to continue this kind of thing. And again, like ultimately, like I said, it's for us to basically be able to someday capture the essence of what not only what individual businesses were in certain time periods, but that also then just adds to what the society and the neighborhoods and the culture of the city was. So you can see patterns about what's important and what's not important based on what businesses are coming in and who's thriving and who's not, and things like that. So there, we give you a list of the types of things to look at, and things like that, the uniqueness of certain items, and so forth. And again, we also give you a way to judge the support of what these items have. How valuable will they be to you going forward to use as tools or items to basically tell your story, because that's basically what we do here at the society, and that's what we want to encourage everyone to do, is to basically tell your story, right? Facts and statistics are awesome, but they don't necessarily engage a lot of people. It's those stories that engage people. It's those stories of how you overcame adversity or how you made a decision that actually changed the course of what you were doing or what your organization is doing. And then, like I said, you can use that to basically, you know, get your internal people excited about, your employees or your volunteers excited about things as well, and kind of show why you are different and why you're important, and why your story is actually, worth telling. So, what we can do is, which I'll kind of get into like what we get out of this and what we can do to help you, as well, because again, we hope this will be a mutually beneficial, relationship, between the participants and ourselves. So what we can do is we can support you in a lot of different ways, as far as this program is concerned. So we can give you, advice and guidance, on, how to, determine what should be preserved and what shouldn't be, and how to preserve those things, and what's the best way, right? There are certain things that, there, there things should be handled in certain manner, right? So, all that acid free, stuff and things like that, because eventually, we're in a situation right now where we've got a whole storage room full of old newspapers and they're just turning to dust. And eventually, once everything is microfilmed or digitized or anything like that, eventually people bring newspapers into us all the time and we just turn them away now. It's like, those are available somewhere else. It's always nice to have a few real ones that we put out as props or something for exhibits, and things like that. But things over time will eventually lose, their importance. And again, we can give you training and we can give you advice on how to go through this process and how to look at that. We can give you some, historical best practices, for things. Again, it's like, it's like I said, if you know that something is going to be important, then go ahead and create it at the time, right? Set it up and create it at the time, document it at the time, archive it at the time, instead of going back, and trying to do that later. The other thing that, obviously we can do is, the more we have, the more we can tell your story. We tell business stories all the time here. We tell them on social media. If you follow us, you can see the kind of stuff that we do. We tell them here in the office. We tell them to people who come in and are doing research. So obviously, if we have your information and there's a tie, we can tell it. We can inform people about it. If we have nothing, we can't. And if we put together, a history of social organizations, in Butler County, and you are running a nonprofit or a social service organization, and we do an exhibit on that someday, we would love to include you, right? We want to have as complete a story as possible, and things like that. So, and sometimes it's just a little bit. Last year we did a huge display exhibit on 1950s and 60s summertime activities. So drive-in theaters, drive-in restaurants, public pools, snack manufacturers that were local, soda manufacturers that were local to the county, and things like that. And some of those organizations, we only had a couple things, right? But some we had a lot. It takes all kinds to make an exhibit. And again, so if you're like, well, we don't have anything, or, we don't have a lot, so I don't know if that's worth it. It is. All right. It's worth it to you. And it will be worth it to the public, sometime, down the road. We can't guarantee that, what you collect and what you put together, somebody's going to come in and be seeking it someday in the future. But you know what? We see tons of situations on a weekly basis where we wish we had something to people's requests. Because if we do have something, I would quick, to back this up, we had 4 cousins come in about a month ago, and their grandparents ran a local corner store, in one of the neighborhoods, and they were looking for it, and we didn't have anything, on that store. It's usually those personal mom and pop businesses that all that information gets lost, because it's just not kept, or it was kept and then people pass, and then folks that the next generations or whatever don't see value in a lot of that. We get a lot of that. People bring stuff in and say, hey, my kids don't want this. My grandkids don't want this. If you don't want it, we're just going to throw it away. There's always something we can probably find. Will we take everything that you bring in? Maybe not. But there's usually something where we'll go, oh yeah, that's valuable. We'll take that. That's important. But I was actually able to find a photograph of this store. And it wasn't really even the focus of it was more like a street scene of the neighborhood, but the store was actually kind of like, on the corner. So it was kind of focal and they were, so excited, because they had never seen that. That was before, they were around. So the fact that they actually, we had a photo, probably from the 1940s of this store, and people get very emotional with that kind of stuff. And that makes us feel good. And it makes us, validates what we do, and things like that. So, but we can tell your story as well. We can include you in exhibits. We can, again, and then eventually we become the keeper of that information, right? So that you don't have to be that person, for an indeterminate amount of time. If you want to, you can basically, what you've created and what you've collected after a certain amount of time, you can give to us. Businesses and organizations do that all the time. We have all of the scrapbooks of ladies organizations, and we have, a bunch of church records and documents and things like that. So, again, that's what we do. And we can provide probably a much safer, environment for those things than you can. If you just got it in a file cabinet somewhere, somebody cleans out their office and things disappear, right? Things get thrown away. I would love to someday basically go and kind of do some kind of archaeological dig at Rumpke, just to see how much of that kind of stuff just got tossed, because somebody didn't think it was important. People leave, they always leave things in their desk, and things like that. So we see value a lot of times where other people don't, things like that. So that's pretty much, that, and that I have. So I will gladly, again, if anybody has any questions, or anything like that, if I didn't make anything clear, or yes, go ahead.
When the chamber celebrated its 100th anniversary in 2010, we did a lot of research, at that time, and I have a box in the basement that has a bunch of stuff in it.
Sure.
The aforementioned box in the basement.
Right.
We did a video. We put together a booklet with some history. I'm thinking that we should probably deliver some of that stuff down to you.
That would be awesome.
Copies
Yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Probably about 4 years ago, Rotary did the same thing. So we have, a lot of that information as well. And I think actually now that maybe, that may be shifting some locations. We'll still document it and assess, assess all of that and give that identification numbers and things. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's what we do. It's a portion of what we do. So, absolutely. We'd be glad to talk to you about that. Yeah, Laura.
In addition to the 100th anniversary thing, we have piles of scrapbooks. I mean, there's things that go back multiple decades probably down there that could probably be some good resources for you potentially.
Sure.
I mean, I've been here for a really long time, and I've really never looked through any of them extensively, but there's just piles of them down there where they took newspaper clippings about companies that were members at the time, or, a person
Sure.
that was a board member, whatever, or a leader in the community. So there might be some really cool information down there that you could add to some resources.
Sure, absolutely. And like I said, if photographs are part of that, and it may be and it may not be, but I would encourage you, I would encourage you to do a throwback every now and then. Be like, this is a chamber event from 19 whatever, 1970 something or 1980 something or 1950 something, and things like that. So, and again, just because the public, most of us, um, are interested in what has come before us. So, and again, it's, especially if it's a location that still exists, or, things like that, or the evolution of something. So, yeah.
Great
And
idea.
again, that's one of the other reasons why was, we did this was, again, just so everybody who participates can then now have a library or a bank of information that they can use for that kind of purpose, and so forth. So, um, that was, another offshoot of why we're pushing this, is because, we want people to be able to tell their story, and it helps success, I think. Um, if you show that you're interested and value your community, wherever that community may be, that community is going to, appreciate and probably, um, reciprocate. At least that's the goal, and things like that. So, anybody
Cool.
else?
We'll definitely take a look at what's down there.
Sure. So basically, to go back to what Jason was talking about, I know we're getting kind of short on time here. Basically, so we collaborate with a lot of other um, historically based organizations. Obviously, that's the most obvious one. So we do collaborate and share things like that with all the other, historic societies that are in the county, and there are a lot, right? Almost every township has their own historical society. A lot of municipalities have their own historical society. So Monroe has their own society, Trenton has a society, Middletown has a society, right? Oxford has one. And again, like I said, townships, so Ross Township, Morgan Township, Riley, Madison. So there's only a few townships that don't have a dedicated historical society, but there's usually someone inside that township somewhere, or in the government, that is kind of like the go-to person for that kind of stuff. So we do that. We do a lot of stuff. We're actually, this is an initiative that we've actually just started in the last couple of years, as far as, trying to basically team up and work with people, whether it be, organizations such as the Chamber, or, the Y. I mentioned Rotary a couple times and things like that. I've done a couple things with the Oxford and Lindenwold Kiwanis. So it's those kind of things. But like organizations are, usually nice fits in matches. So a lot of other nonprofits we've kind of spread out there and working and trying to collaborate and develop relationships with those as well. Again, because if there's anybody who needs to tell their story, and probably should tell their story, it's organizations like that, especially organizations that provide something to the community that maybe, I think we'll all be surprised at how much we think we're doing a good job of getting the word out, and we're doing a good job of making people aware of who we are and what we do. But I think, if you look at it, sometimes I'm always surprised, but like, wow, we need to do a better job at that. So we can help you do that, right? And things like that. You can have access to, if we tag you or share a post with you, or actually do a post about you, that's 14,000 followers right there that, you'll have reach to, that maybe you wouldn't otherwise. So there's those kind of aspects. And again, there's also just like the preservation, things like that. So, but we have done, we have worked with businesses and things like that, various businesses of putting things together for them, or doing research for them, trying to fill some gaps, that they may have in their timeline or in their story. So, that is something that we are actively pursuing and trying to do on a more intentional basis. Because we want to be around again for the next 100 years too. And if we don't build those relationships, and we just sit back and basically go, okay, we're here, that's not going to be successful. So the better we can be, the more we can get our name out and that we're here, and have people support us, the better off we can support the county and all its communities that are in it.
Ryan, I don't have a question, but I do have an affirmation. I feel like with your passion for history, I feel like you kind of spark intrigue in people who maybe don't um, really find interest in history. You make it more interesting, just your passion alone.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to say, so one of our newer chamber members, Whitewater Shaker Village in
Mhm.
Harrison, Ohio, we have not visited yet, but we want to kind of do like a fun Friday or a field trip Friday, like Dan was wanting to implement. And I think it'd be really fun to have you there with us when we visit.
Okay.
I think it'd be
Yeah,
really
Jennifer, I think Jennifer, who is kind of like I think the lead for that organization. We're in a couple organizations together. We're both members of the Greater Cincinnati Museums and Historic Sites. So yeah, I attend several meetings with her, and yeah, she's very, very, very gung ho about that area and that situation and that site. So yeah, and it's a really cool site, and they've done a lot recently to really make it bring it up to code and to bring it up to display quality. So yeah, they're doing a lot of renovation out there. But yeah, absolutely, I'd appreciate that. Um, absolutely. And you guys, I'd love to have you come here too. One of those times again, so forth. But yeah. And that was, so forth. And then I'll talk to you some other things, about, one of our goals. I would love to be able to have, to bring a stack of packets, to each of the chambers and things like that. So if you have a new business that comes into your, I see you guys doing ribbon cuttings all the time. So, but it's just something like, oh, new members, here's a packet, and things like that, and then if they choose to utilize it, great. If they don't, that's fine too. But yeah, we need some help. We would love to partners with a lot of different people to basically help spread this program throughout the community.
Brian, I think this is an amazing program. I mean, there's so many businesses, you've got sole proprietors up to corporations that have
Mhm.
made up Hamilton, Main Street, all the small areas of town, to, more of industrial areas. And I could see a lot of small business owners being like, I'm just one person. I'm a storefront on Main Street, but
Sure.
that's what's made up the fabric of our community over decades.
Oh,
And to say,
absolutely. Yeah.
oh, this store was on Main Street. We had this store, on Lindenwall. These stores made up the fabric of our community, and saving that information because, somebody's relative was, a pioneer in starting out some of these things. So I think it's super cool, and nobody's too small to add their information to this resource.
No, absolutely not. And the other thing is like, if you go through history and you look at, in certain time periods, this was the this was the go-to business, right? Or, this community had 5 blacksmiths. Well, obviously now, that's a need for the community that's far lessened. It's still around. But yeah, but you can see how, the evolution of certain things and businesses, and who knows what that's going to be like, in the future. And there are businesses that were around back in the day that aren't around anymore. Because those businesses or those needs or those services evolved into something else and they became obsolete. But again, it's if we have a document of like, oh, this or that, and we have some things that showed what something used to cost back in the day, that's another thing that people find incredibly fascinating. It's just like, oh, wow, you could actually have this person perform this service for you, and it was only that much. That's all. And again, that allows us to tell the story of how things progressed and things as well, and stuff like that. So. But yeah, it's open to anybody. And the last page of the information in the chat has my contact information. You can give us a call, you can shoot me an email. I'd be glad to come out and talk to you, or you can come over here and visit and look at what we have, and I can show you kind of like, here's the lay of the land, and this is what we do, and this is what we can provide to you and things like that, and so forth. So Absolutely. I'll do, as long as it's within reason and it's legal, I'll do whatever I can to help you out.
Awesome. Yeah, I think definitely if you want to bring us some packets down, then as we talk to businesses as they come in, we can just share the information. Hopefully they'll fill it out and return it to you, at least get some basic info over there as
Sure.
adding to that history.
That's all we can ask.
Because you think 100 years from now, you think, oh, I'm a store, I own a store on Main Street. Like I'm just here. Like, but 100
Yeah.
years from now, you look back and you're like, that person, was part of the community and that business was important to us, and
Sure.
saving some of that information along the way.
Well, we get new businesses come in all the time. Businesses on Main Street or anywhere, and they're like, hey, do you have any photos of, what used to be in my business before or anything like that? Or do you have any old photos of, I'm going to open a barbershop, and do you have any old photos of other barbershops around town from 100 years ago or more? So, there's all of those kind of things. Photos are pretty popular for a lot of people, and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it's a wide variety of why people want certain information and things like that. And a lot of times it's very, it's personalized or whatever. But so sometimes people want specific addresses, and sometimes people want just like subject matter.
Awesome. Does anyone have any other questions that they want to ask Brian? Just to let you guys know, I did send a recap of today's conversation with Brian's email and also the PDF attached, including a little bit about the process for Ledger to Legacy as well. And Brian, I do want to let you know too, like Laura was saying, I think this would be a great process for me whenever I meet with members as well. Just such a really nice way, I think, I feel like in learning about the history, it kind of makes you more intentional about the present, I feel like, and also the future.
Yeah.
So
yeah, we all got here somehow.
Yes, this is true. Well, so everyone, thank you so much for joining today. Brian, thank you so much for giving
thank
this
you.
wonderful presentation and conversation. If you guys are interested in keeping in touch, we do have a Mix It Up coming up on July 16th. That will be at ADG Painting Services. We also have networking leads at lunchtime, which will happen at Stone Tavern on July 21st. Then coming up in August, we have Himmelpalooza, August 22nd. We have a few spots left for vendors, and I believe there might be some spots for sponsorships. So make sure you reach out to Nancy. All of the information is on our website. If you would like to present at a coffee and conversation, let us know. You can come up with a topic you'd like to educate the business community on, and we'll get you on the books. Everyone have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, guys.